Hello and welcome back to anyone and everyone watching. Thank you all again for the recent support on the channel. By now we're probably at or even above 100 subscribers. Yeah, that really means a lot to me. But now, as you can already see by the title, I'm going to be ranking the top 10 most forgotten NASCAR drivers of the 2020s. And I know what you might be thinking. How could there possibly be 10 drivers who raced as recently as 2020 who you've already forgotten? Well, I was thinking the same thing originally, and I was only going to make this a top 5 or so, but as I kept going through all the standings of the Truck and Xfinity series from the past 3 seasons, I just kept finding more and more drivers who I completely forgot even existed. Also, for some very dedicated NASCAR fans, which I would consider myself as, you may certainly remember everyone on this list, which I was able to, but once we get to around the final top 4 or 5, I promise you will not have given a single thought to any of these drivers since they last raced. And one final thing before we get right into it, the criteria I use to select these drivers is that they must have raced in at least half the races in a Cup, Xfinity, or Truck season in either 2020, 2021, or 2022, or they must have competed in at least half of an ARCA season in those years and have made starts in Cup, Xfinity, or Trucks at any point in their careers. Otherwise, I could just pick out the bottom 10 drivers from the Xfinity or Truck standings from 3 years ago with a bunch of unknown road course ringers who only ever made one start, and that just wouldn't be a whole lot of fun. So hopefully I made that all crystal clear, and without any further ado, let's get right into the top 10 most forgotten drivers of the 2020s so far. Coming in at number 10 is a driver of a pretty recognizable car in the ARCA Menard series from the late 2010s and 2020, but a driver that ever so quietly disappeared from the sport following the 2020 season. I'm talking about Michael Self. One of only 2 primarily ARCA drivers on this list, Michael did make 7 starts in the Xfinity series for JD Motorsports back in 2015. Where despite a mostly unsuccessful stint with an average finish of 28.6 and 2 crashes, he put on an incredible performance at the Road America race, far and wide the best race of his season, where he came home in 11th place, right behind RCR's Ty Dillon and right in front of Roush's Elliott Sadler. Before that, he did quite well in the ARCA West Series, formerly the K&N Pro Series West, where in 3 full-time seasons for Richard Childress Racing between 2011 and 2013, he went on to pick up 6 wins and a best points finish of 4th. Then he returned to the series in 2017 in one of the iconic Sunrise Ford racing cars, where he picked up 2 more wins with another 4th place finish in points after a very clean season in which he never finished worse than 8th in a single race. What he's known most for, however, is his time in the ARCA Menard series with sponsor Sinclair Oil. With his first ARCA win also coming in 2017 in a part-time schedule with MDM Motorsports, Michael caught the attention of ARCA powerhouse team Venturini Motorsports, who signed him for half the races in 2018. That year, Michael tallied up 2 more wins, enticing Venturini to bring him back for a full-time championship-seeking campaign the following year. In 2019, he recorded 4 wins, 14 top 5s, and 15 top 10s, and brought to a runner-up finish in points to Christian Eckes. With victory within their reach, Venturini decided to rack him up and go for it again in 2020. But unfortunately, Self took a step back that year, with only 2 wins and another close runner-up finish to Brett Holmes in the final standings, even with an average finish of 5.2 and only ever finishing outside the top 10 in 1 race. Either 2019 or 2020, just putting together 1 or 2 slightly better races was the difference between being the champion or the first loser, and quite possibly a future in NASCAR or not. For Self, though, he took the shorter end in both, and going into 2021, either due to a lack of funding, no team offers, or both, as of yet, he has not returned to ARCA or NASCAR in any capacity. Already, this is probably the most disappointing story on the whole video, as in my opinion, Self could at very least have made a great career in the lower series of NASCAR, and maybe even Cup, but now he's already a forgotten driver to an extent. Next up is Chad Fincham, a driver who even made a handful of starts this year. As recently as 2020, Fincham would certainly be a lesser-known driver, but far from forgotten, as he ran 29 out of 33 Xfinity races, as well as 3 Cup races for MBM Motorsports. However, ever since then, he has slowly faded out of the spotlight, only returning for 6 Xfinity races and 2 Cup races in 2021, and this past season in 2022, he only ran 2 Xfinity races. Part of this comes from the struggles of his longtime team, MBM, who since 2021 has been unable to keep up with the increasing field sizes in the Xfinity series. Despite running 3 full-time cars in 2020 with little issue, the next year, nearly every race saw more teams trying to qualify for races than there was room for. And with MBM being one of the most underfunded and slowest teams out there, they were the first to go. In 2021, their 66 car failed to qualify for 2 races, their 61 car, which had help from Hattori Racing, went home in 4 races, their 42 car missed 2 out of its 3 attempts, and their 3rd planned full-time car, the 13 car, didn't qualify for a staggering 20 races, or on paper at least. See, in 2021, there was still no actual qualifying taking place in most races due to COVID, so after falling behind early in the owner's points, the 13 car was just locked out of most of the races from then on out. So in most of those DNQs, the car actually never even hit the track, and they were just hoping another team would withdraw from the race. This past season in 2022, NBM downsized tremendously, only ever attempting 4 total Cup races, likely due to the huge setback and financial loss of having both their cars fail to qualify for the Daytona 500. In Xfinity, they only ran 2 cars, the 66 with full-time driver JJ Yaley, who did pretty well overall, scoring 2 top 10s, only missing 2 races, and coming home 24th in points. And the 13 car, which had the opposite fortune. Even with real qualifying returning, the fields were still over capacity, and with his multiple drivers, the 13 car failed to make 10 races, including 4 with Chad Fincham. In total at this point, Fincham has competed in 6 Cup races with a best finish of 33rd, 107 Xfinity races with a best finish of 11th, and a top points finish of 26th. In addition to 17 ARCA East Series races where he picked up his lone win back in 2016 at Bristol. Going forward, I don't expect to see much more of Chad Fincham around the track, as with NBM's downsizing on top of his own lack of sponsorship and lack of impressive runs, he will most likely not have a future in NASCAR. Coming in at number 8 is Corey Roper. Corey came into the truck series scene out of nowhere in 2018, driving only for his own team, Roper Racing, and he would have some very impressive runs right off the bat. In his debut at Martinsville, he finished in 13th place, right behind Ben Rhodes and ahead of KBM's Todd Gilliland and Thor Sports' Matt Crafton. The race wasn't a wreckfest and there was no gimmicks involved. Roper just put on a show out there. That run wouldn't be matched until the Texas race the following year, where after 2 stunning 5th and 7th place qualifying runs at Las Vegas and Charlotte respectively, he would finally finish in the top 10 with a P9. Then, with a mediocre first half to his 2020 season, Roper would not return after the Daytona road course race, as he would run out of funding. He kept at it behind the scenes, though, and was able to come back strong in 2021, where in the season opener at Daytona, he entered the final lap in the lead. I'll just let you guys watch the clip on that one.
Rhodes jumps up front to block Creed, and now back to the bottom.
Yeah, great move there by Ben Rhodes to move up and kind of stall out the 2, but I'm telling you, the 04 truck is pushing Sheldon Creed. Look at that.
White flag,
Huge
1 to
push.
go. Creed up top, and there was some contact in the wall by Roper, and now Roper goes to the bottom.
Good move.
Corey Roper to the front. Crafton giving his teammate Ben Rhodes a little shove. Can they get past the 0-4 of Corey Roper? Contact in the 22 of Austin Wayne. Self going around. We stay green on the final lap at Daytona.
Ben Rhodes is backed up. He's going to get a little bit of a run right here on him. Here comes
Corey
his
Roper,
teammate.
the Texan, trying to hold on. 43 years old.
Oh.
Big crash, and Ben Rhodes going around the outside and across the line. Jordan Anderson with the huge run. But it's Ben Rhodes, the winner.
But yeah, that was also a very popular finish, so hence why he is pretty low on this list. Following that, which likely will be his all-time career highlight as he still came home 3rd, Corey failed to have any other notable runs until the other super speedway race on the schedule, Talladega, in which he finished a very impressive 6th place. Unfortunately, once again, he was unable to secure funding for the 2022 season whatsoever. He did put his name on the entry list for the Talladega race, but would then withdraw. So as of now, Corey has run 43 truck races, all for his own team. He has a combined 1 top 5 and 3 top 10s. And oh, I forgot to mention, he started his NASCAR career in 2018 at age 40. That's about when most Cup drivers retire. If he had entered the sport a lot younger, he very well could have been a real big thing, but we'll never know. Next on the list, at number 7, is another owner driver in the truck series, Cody Rohrbaugh. From 2014 to 2016, Cody ran 14 ARCA East races with little success, only nabbing 1 top 10. Then from 2016 to 2019, he made 20 starts in the National ARCA Series with slightly improved results, bringing home 7 top 10s with the best finish of 7th coming at Pocono in 2018. Also in 2018, Cody would attempt races for his truck team for the first time, but with no immediate gains, as after 2 solid top 20s, he failed to qualify for the season opener the next year at Daytona, and in his second attempt at Martinsville. Over time, he would get his feet under him, and only by his 10th start, he would earn his first career top 10. Unfortunately, that impressive finish came at the expense of 4 crashes and 3 total DNQs in only 12 attempted races that season. But he would leave Daytona pretty satisfied come 2020, unlike the year prior, as in an iconic finish in the closest in Truck Series history Daytona, at only 1/100th of a second between Grant Enfinger and Jordan Anderson. Many overlooked it afterwards, but Cody was right there too. As you can see by the footage here, the finish line was even a little bit further out. Cody's momentum would have propelled him right to the win. Regardless, that third place finish would be by far his best at that point, and continues to be to this day. That's not to say he hasn't come close though, as later that year he posted another top 5 at Talladega, and a remarkable 6th place run, not at a super speedway, but at Richmond. No gimmicks involved, Cody's put together one heck of a race that day. In fact, he was the last truck on the lead lap after a 68-lap-long green flag run to conclude the race. By then, fans were starting to take notice of the number 9 truck, as with 3 standout races by the underdog owner-driver, he was heading into 2021 with some great momentum. But he left off right about where he started. Following a solid P8 at Daytona, he only ever came up with a next best finish of 16th into 7 other starts. And even worse for Cody, his season ended with 4 consecutive DNFs due to crashes, almost all of which he had no fault in, just some of the worst luck possible. And he would end off on that bad note, because ever since his wreck at Talladega, he's not attempted another race. Nevertheless, his team still stuck around, only with Blaine Perkins in the driver role for 2022. Originally, I thought they could put together some great runs, as Perkins had a pretty solid resume heading into the season, with 3 wins and a runner-up points finish in his 2020 ARCA West Series campaign, in addition to a rather impressive part-time Xfinity Series jaunt with Our Motorsports, where he had a best finish of 13th at Talladega after a huge upset win in the second stage. Perkins also brought some much-needed funding to the team, with full sponsorship from Raceline Wheels. But much to my surprise, they flopped hard. And I mean really hard. Over the course of the entire season, they really didn't have a single good race together, as in the end, Perkins totaled 0 top 10s, an average finish of 27.8, 5 DNFs due to crashes, and a DNQ at Martinsville. Not to mention, at 29th overall, he finished worse in points than Young's Motorsports drivers Jesse Little and Kaz Gralla, who each only ran about half the schedule. It's a pretty big yikes. It's tight between Blaine and Jack Wood, but I think the number 9 team may have had the worst season out of any full-time team. So going into 2023, nothing has been announced from Cody's team, CR7 Motorsports, but I would not be surprised to see Cody back behind the wheel again if he has the means to do so. But until then, he remains a largely forgotten driver in NASCAR. Next on the list, in the 6th spot, is a driver who, if any know him, is either because you know every driver or because you remember him directly impacting the 2020 Truck Series Championship. Yeah, I'm talking about Dawson Cram. Other than costing Brett Moffitt his 2nd Truck Series title, which by the way is completely NASCAR's fault, not his, for having one race decide which of 4 drivers wins, Dawson has some pretty good runs in the Truck Series, and in my opinion is a heavily underrated driver. In 2018, at only 16 years old, Cram made his truck debut for Beaver Motorsports. And for them being a small team, and with him having no previous NASCAR or ARCA experience, he did really well, honestly, with a lead lap P17 finish. In 2019, in his 4th ever start, he would top that in a big way, bringing back a P13 finish for one of the worst teams in the series, Reum Brothers Racing. Although he came close with a 14th for Long Motorsports the next year, Cram has yet to better that run. But also, he has still never competed for any top-level or even middle-of-the-pack teams. After attempting to race the full season for his family team in 2021, but coming up a little short due to a lack of funding, Dawson headed into the 2022 season with no plans. But luckily, during the end of the year, he received a few calls from different backmarker Xfinity teams, Mike Harmon Racing, Emerling Gaze Motorsports, and MBM Motorsports. In his 5 attempts this past season, he was only able to come up with a best finish of 30th at Darlington, coupled with 2 DNQs. Right now, he's still only 21, and I believe he has a decent amount of potential if he's ever given an opportunity with a good team. Hopefully he's able to get that in 2023 or soon thereafter, but until then, even though he competed in the most recent Xfinity race, I still believe he's one of the most forgotten drivers in the sport. Well, originally I planned to make this all in one video, but it's looking like it around halfway. We're already around like 15 minutes in, so I'll be breaking this project into 2 parts. And with that being said, that's all for today. Make sure to tune in for part 2, which will be coming out roughly 1-2 days from now, where I'll be going through drivers 5 through 2, the honorable mentions, and number 1. But that's all for today, so until then, peace out.